Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss the first topic from Unit 3, Spermatogenesis. What is the spermatogenesis? It is the formation of sperms that begins or start at the onset of puberty, and it continues until relatively late in life, past age 70 or even after the age of the 70. It is a continuous process, and all stages of meiosis can be observed in the testes or the functional unit of testes that we call it as a seminiferous tubules. It takes over 2 months from beginning or starting to end of spermatogenesis. In males, the spermatogonia enter meiosis and produce the sperm from puberty until the death. The process of sperm production takes only a few weeks. Each ejaculation has 100 to 500 millions of the sperms. This is the testis where the spermatogenesis occurs. This is the longitudinal section of the testis, and if you observe the longitudinal section of the testis, it having the compartments, and these compartments are called as a lobules, and these lobules are having the seminiferous tubules, which are the functional unit of the these testes. Then these testes are connected to the structure that are called as a reed testes, and these reed testes then are connected to the efferent ductules, and from these efferent ductules these sperm travel toward these epididymis, and from epididymis it goes to the vasa deferentia or the vas deferentia. This is the same picture, that is the LS of testes, and this is the spermatic cord, the testicular veins and arteries, and these are the lobules, and within each lobule these seminiferous tubules are there. This is the section of the testes or transverse section of the testes, and it having the rounded structures, and these rounded structures are called as a seminiferous tubules, and these seminiferous tubules are lying within a connective tissue, and it having the interstitial cells which secretes a hormone testosterone. The many seminiferous tubules are shown in this figure, which makes the spermatogonia, or which forms the spermatozoa or the sperms. Then this is a single seminiferous tubule having the different uh, developing stages during the spermatogenesis. The first thing, that is the first one, that is these are the Leydig cells or the interstitial cells which produces the hormone testosterone, that is a male sex hormone. Then the spermatogonia. The spermatogonia, from where or the sperms begins to form, and these give rise to the spermatocytes. After that process of meiosis, it becomes a spermatids, and lastly or finally it becomes a spermatozoa or the sperm. So these are the stages, that is starts from the spermatogonia, it continues as a word, the primary spermatocyte and secondary spermatocyte, then the spermatids and the spermatozoa. These are the various stages during the meiosis. That is, this is the having the head. This is the spermatozoa. Then the primary spermatocyte. Then primary spermatocyte. Then this one is a secondary spermatocyte. Then the spermatogonia. All these are the what the different cells. These are the Saltori cells which helps in the what the development of the this or the spermatogenesis. Then if you observe how these are formed, that spermatogonia, then the primary spermatocyte. The spermatogonia, after repeated division, it forms a primary spermatocyte. The primary spermatocyte undergoes the meiosis to form the secondary spermatocytes. And this secondary spermatocyte, after the completion of the meiosis II, there is a formation of the spermatids, which are rounded in structure, and these spermatids undergoes the spermiogenesis, and from these it forms a spermatozoa or the sperm proper. During the spermatogenesis, the three phases are there. One is a spermatogonial phase or the mitosis phase. In this phase, the spermatogonia proliferate by the mitotic divisions to provide the stem cells and cells which will proceed through the spermatogenesis, that is the primary spermatocytes. The spermatocyte phase is the second phase. Here, in this phase, the diploid cells created in the spermatogonial phase give rise to the haploid cells, that is the meiosis I, or that is a reductional division. And the meiosis II is a equatorial division, or the it is like the mitosis, and the spermatocyte enter the meiosis I to form the two secondary spermatocytes which then enter the meiosis, and the which meiosis II, and it results in the formation of the spermatids. Spermatid phase. In the spermatid, the differentiation occurs and spermiogenesis occurs, and it gives rise to the what that is a sperm proper or the sperms. So the primordial germ cell, it gives rise to the spermatogonia. Then from spermatogonia, the repeated divisions are there, and this phase is called as a growth multiplication phase. And from this phase, the meiosis I, there is a formation of the primary spermatocyte, and then after this the primary spermatocyte, the secondary spermatocytes are formed, and these spermatocytes, after the completion of meiosis II, it gives rise to the spermatids, and spermatids then after spermiogenesis, it gives rise to the sperm cells. Then next comes the spermiogenesis, or the development or the maturation of the spermatid into the sperm. Before discussing that, the first we will discuss the three stages of the spermatogenesis that we have just discussed. The word, the first stage is the spermatogonia. This is the first stage where the spermatogonia divide and redivide by the simply mitosis process, and this phase is called as a proliferation phase, or that we call it as a multiplication phase. And after that, this multiplication phase, at the end we get the primary spermatocytes, and from these primary spermatocytes, this gives rise to the, it undergoes the meiosis I to form the these to to convert this primary spermatocyte, or the this diploid primary spermatocyte into the haploid secondary spermatocyte, and from this secondary spermatocyte there is a formation of the spermatids, and after these spermatids This undergoes the maturation or the process that we called it as a differentiation or the spermiogenesis to form the mature sperm. This is the process of the spermiogenesis. What happens during the spermiogenesis? The At the end of the completion of the meiosis II, there is a formation of the rounded structure, and that rounded structure that we called it as a spermatids. Means at the end of the first phase, multiplication phase, and at the second phase is at the completion of meiosis. The last final product is the spermatid, and this spermatid will give rise to the sperm, and this therefore, this spermatid undergoes the maturation phase, or that we called it as a differentiation phase, and this differentiation phase is called as a spermiogenesis. This is the spermatid proper, and this is the nucleus of spermatid. These are the Golgi bodies. These are the mitochondria. The newly formed spermatid is almost perfectly spherical and has a well-developed Golgi apparatus. What happens to this Golgi apparatus? The small vesicles which are present in the Golgi body, these start to fuse, giving rise to the larger secretory granules, and these are called as a proacrosomic granules. The centrioles which are present in this spermatid, they start to move towards the position beneath the spermatid nucleus. These are the centrioles, and they are start to migrate beneath this nucleus and opposite to where acrosomic or the proacrosomic granule. Then in the next phase, the vesicle fusion continues and until the large acrosomic vesicle is formed that contains a dense acrosomic granule. The proximal centriole, this is a proximal centriole which comes below the spermatid nucleus, and which will give rise to the attachment point of the tail. And the distal centriole will give rise to the developing axoneme, which is a central portion of the tail inside the cytoplasm of the spermatid. Then the next phase starts, that is a cap phase. The Golgi migrates toward the caudal part of the cell. The distal centriole forms the axoneme or flagellum that projects away from the nucleus toward the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. Here all these Golgi bodies or the Golgi are migrating. The distal centriole, it forms the axoneme, and this proximal centriole, these work as an attachment. Then the acrosomic vesicle now flattens. This is acrosomical vesicle which gets flattened and begins to form a distinct cap consisting of the two membranes. One is a outer acrosomal membrane and the another one is a inner acrosomal membrane. And the acrosomal contents are formed that are nothing but the enzymes. Then the third phase, that is the acrosomal phase. In the acrosomal phase, what happens? The spermatid nucleus here, it begins to elongate, and acrosome eventually covers majority of the anterior part of the nucleus. The manchette is formed in the this is the manchette, and this manchette is formed in the region of the caudal hop of the nucleus, and these extend downward toward the developing flagellum. In the next phase, the neck and the annulus are formed below the spermatid nucleus, and let this the annulus, it becomes a junction between the middle piece and the head piece or the principal piece. And all these mitochondria are now, these are the towards the what? Is concentrated toward the middle piece. Then the last phase, that is a maturation phase. In this maturation phase, mitochondria, this forms the spiral assembly around the flagellum, and that forms a middle piece. The post-nuclear cap is formed from the manchate microtubules, and there is a formation of the entire head region, and the annulus form the junction between the middle piece and the principal piece or the head region. So this finally the mature sperm is get formed. During the formation of the embryo, the primordial germ cells migrate into the testes and it becomes a immature germ cells that we called it as a spermatogonia. And these spermatogonia lie in two or three layers of the inner surface of the seminiferous tubule. The spermatogonia begin to undergo mitotic division beginning at puberty and continually proliferate and differentiate through the definite stages of the development to form a sperm. The time taken by these events, that is, the spermatogonia to spermatocyte, it requires 8 days. Then from primary spermatocyte or to secondary spermatocyte, it requires a 16 days. Means for the completion of the meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, it takes the what? 16 days. For the multiplication phase, it takes the 8 days. That is from spermatogonia to primary spermatocyte. And the secondary spermatocytes to the spermatid, or that it requires 24 days. Then the last phase, that is means the from primary spermatocyte to secondary spermatocyte, that is completion of the meiosis 1, it is completed within the 16 days, and for the meiosis 2 it requires 24 days. Then the spermiogenesis. Spermiogenesis, it occurs in a three processes, that, that is a it is what the morphological transformation of the spermatid, and that is a haploid non-motile inactive spermatozoa into the sperm, and that takes the what near about 10 to 15 days. The production of the gametes in the gonad is called as a gametogenesis. The spermatogenesis is the formation of sperm inside the testes. The cells of germinal epithelium of the testes undergo a sequence of mitotic and meiotic divisions to form the haploid gametes. It is important that gametes are haploid so that at the fertilization the diploid number is restored. First, there is a multiplication phase which involves repeated mitotic divisions to produce the primary to produce a spermatogonia. And once formed, they grow to full size and they undergo maturation, and it involves the meiotic division and then differentiation to form the mature gametes. Spermatogenesis is the process by which the spermatozoa are produced, and this takes place in germinal epithelium of seminiferous tubules. The diploid spermatogonia divide many times by mitosis, and finally it gives rise to the primary spermatocytes. These then undergo meiosis, and after first meiotic division, it forms a secondary spermatocyte. After the second meiotic division, they form spermatids which differentiate into mature spermatozoa. In the wall of seminiferous tubule are the Sertoli cells, and they secrete a fluid which nourishes the spermatid and protects them from immune system of the male. There are also groups of interstitial cells which secretes a hormone, that is a male sex hormone, that is a testosterone, under the influence of which the gametogenesis or the spermatogenesis occurs. This is the structure of the mature sperm. This is the spermatozoa that's having the head region and yet it comprises of the acrosome, which contains the enzymes for the dissolution of the walls of the eggs or the ovum, and it having the nucleus, which having the haploid set of the chromosome. Then the middle piece. This middle piece having the proximal centriole and the distal centriole. These are the centrioles, and it having the spirally coiled, that is the middle piece, and it having the spirally coiled the mitochondria, and the last part, that is a flagellum, which comprises of the microtubules. This is the acrosome, then this is the nucleus, and this is the distal centriole, and this one is a proximal centriole. This distal centriole, it forms the axoneme of the tail, and this is a mitochondrial spiral, which is uh, at the middle piece, and this is the head piece, and the last one is a tail piece or the tail part. So the spermatogenesis, it can be summarized as this is a process which is completed in the three process or the three step. First one is a multiplication phase. The spermatogonial cells divide and redivide, and renewal of the stem cells occurs, and by the repeated meiosis, and finally it forms a spermatocyte. This is the first phase that we called it as a multiplication phase, where this one the spermatogonia forms a 2, then 4, 8 and 16 likewise. Then the spermatocytes or the primary spermatocyte undergo the meiosis 1 or reductional division, and these diploid spermatocytes become a haploid one, and it gives rise to the double number of the secondary spermatocyte, that is a secondary spermatocyte, which are the haploid in nature. And this secondary spermatocyte undergoes the meiosis 2, where the equational division is there, and it forms the spermatids. And these spermatids, it undergoes the maturation phase or differentiation phase. The process is called as a spermiogenesis, and finally the sperms are formed. So this is the complete process of the spermatogenesis.